Hi, welcome to PhRobyn episode 3. In today's episode we're going to do part 2 of our workplace toxicity traits. So last episode we did A to M and we're going to do N to Z. Any examples used in this episode are just for educational purposes only and are not tied to any specific individual, company or event. Cool, so for N we have narcissism. So in narcissism, we're obviously not going to touch on narcissism like the personality disorder. However, there's some behavioural traits that unfortunately fall under narcissism that you may find in an unhealthy workplace. So the first one is superiority or entitlement. And I guess with that one, it's a bit like you obviously have your org chart or your hierarchy in a company, right? But that kind of gives you authority, but it doesn't give you permission to look down on people or make them feel small.
With that one, I think there's distinction between a leader and a manager, isn't there, as well? Like, you're going to motivate staff by leading them rather than bossing them around.
Yeah.
And acting like you're superior in every way isn't going to motivate them to do much.
Yeah, and if you're constantly trying to make people feel beneath you, that's not going to be very good for morale either, because they'll just feel stomped on, basically. So another one we have is lack of empathy. So obviously this would be like your leader or perhaps a peer, if you go to for help and they just don't want to know or don't want to help you, don't offer any support. That's obviously going to make that individual feel rubbish in that environment.
Yeah, you've always got to kind of see their point of view as well, haven't you?
Yeah, as like even whether you're a leader or a peer, like if somebody comes to you and wants your support, it's important to give it to them and not just give them the cold shoulder. We also have envy. So this would be colleagues getting jealous of other colleagues because, perhaps they've been rewarded for doing a good job and then this person gets jealous of that other person. And it should be like that in a workplace. Like everybody's a team and their successes are also your successes, and it should be promoted as seen as a good thing.
And yeah, so like you said, you should be happy that someone else is doing well. If you're in a leadership position, that's also showing that you're doing well, that members of your team are getting praised and being shown to do well. So that reflects well on you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one that falls under narcissism, which may be found in the workplace, is a need for admiration. And I guess that kind of comes from a little bit of being envious. So if you're envious of somebody else getting rewarded, that person may feel they want to be rewarded as well. Rather than that motivating them to do better, that may cause envy or jealousy against other colleagues rather than just being happy for them. For O then, we have overreactions. So I guess this is, again, in a leadership position. It's about weighing up what is a costly mistake. So mistakes happen in the workplace. We're all human, and if every mistake gets overreacted to, then when a big mistake happens, they're not going to be able to tell the difference. And they're also going to feel like they're walking on eggshells and not going to want to own up to mistakes that they make.
I think as well, there's it doesn't have to be a mistake. It could be an event that happens that you've overreacted to. And as a leader, you kind of got to be aware that maybe you are overreacting to something. Maybe it's not it might be serious, but it might not be as serious as what you're trying to do to prevent it happening again. You might just be going overboard. So I think it's important to take a measured approach and be aware of if you're overreacting to something.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you learn from your mistakes as well. So, even if it's a small mistake, you're going to learn from that, and your colleagues are going to learn from that as well, or your subordinates. And that should almost be like a positive, like turn a negative into a positive. Don't overreact about it and make them feel a certain way. Obviously, you get bad mistakes and that needs to be dealt with, but if you're overreacting to little ones, then that's not going to help anybody. For P, we have public humiliation. I guess that kind of ties into part 1 when we were talking about bullying and belittling. It's just something to be aware of. If you see it happening, then perhaps raise it with your line manager or a peer or something. Nobody should be made to feel humiliated in the work.
Yeah, it's one of those things where some things are best suited between maybe your line manager and yourself. It's like if it is your line manager or like a colleague, like humiliating you in like a public channel, for example, it can be awkward just to sit there and hear it, and like know your colleagues are also hearing that as well about you. But yeah, bring it up to your line manager, or like if you can't bring it up with your line manager, then definitely speak to someone else like HR or their manager.
Yeah, and I guess if like you're humiliating them to make them feel a certain way, aren't you? And you're like showing them up to the rest of the team. And what really they should do is bring it up with you directly, rather than putting it in a public space. Cool. So for P, we also have punishing curiosity. It's good that everybody thinks different ways, and that should be like promoted in every workplace, because different points of view can actually help like collaborate the team, and more ideas make more innovative products. And if somebody's sat there being curious and you're punishing them for it, that's going to just make them shut up.
You always want to kind of, like, everyone brings new experience to the team, don't they? Like they might have been at your company for like a year, but they might have worked in the industry for 10 years or so. So by like punishing them and getting them to be quiet or whatever, you're just negating all that experience they've been hired to bring. So you really just embrace it, isn't it?
Embrace people's mindsets and embrace curiosity. Like, just because they've got different ideas, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to go with their ideas. It's just saying, oh, thank you for sharing that, and embrace it, like you said. Okay, so for Q, we have quit, or rather quit a manager, which is one that you say quite often. You don't quit a job, you quit a manager. And I see quite a few posts online that say if someone's walked away and they've not got another job lined up, that's a massive red flag about the culture of your company.
Yeah, and as like a manager or leader, you've got to kind of appreciate that if people are quitting, like it's normal for people to move on, but if several people are quitting at the same time, then that's something that you've got to kind of figure out why, and like what's causing people to quit. And like you said, like especially if they haven't got a job lined up, then like what's happening? Why are they quitting without jobs just to get away from the company?
Yeah, it should be reviewed, and it's like exit interviews as well should probably be a standard, or just having an honest conversation with that person. Why are you leaving? And then try and do your best to help them or give them support. But if they've quit, it might be too late. They might feel like there's nothing left for them there if the culture is that bad. Okay, so another one we have for Q is questioning yourself. So I guess this kind of ties in with other traits that we've covered before, like gaslighting. So if you are being gaslit and it's constantly happening, then that person is going to be made to question themselves and question what they've said previously, and it might knock their confidence in a job that they used to be confident in.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you're questioning yourself, you like it's going to affect you mentally as well. Like even if you've like decide to leave that job and then go to another company, you're still going to be questioning yourself there as well, thinking like, what they said this thing to me before, maybe I'm like not going to be great at again at another company or whatever. So it causing someone to question themselves is not going to just have an impact on like productivity in your workplace. It's going to affect them into the next workplace as well.
Yeah, a scar of the toxic traits that they've come out of. Okie doke. For R, we have remit. So when we go into a job, we'll get the job description, right? And we have our responsibilities. Some people may step out of their remit perhaps to help or to try and like have themselves seen so that they could be, go up to the next level in their career. And if they're being like reprimanded for stepping out of their remit, that's not helping them grow.
Yeah, I think maybe it's something to bring up with them as well. Like if you think they're doing something that isn't in their job description, maybe have a talk to them and see like why, like is that an area they want to pursue? Like, and if it is, then maybe they might be better at it, or maybe they have experience in an area that you weren't aware of, and they can help there as well.
Yeah, and if they're stepping out of their remit and they think you're sat there thinking, oh, why are they doing that? Just ask them or just have a conversation with them. So there might be a genuine reason as to why they've done that. It might be to help others, or because if somebody's off sick and is just covering some load, as an example, your reprimanding them is not going to help that. It might actually make them step back in future and not want to do anything but the bare minimum. So it all kind of adds up to a negative culture. For R as well, we also have rumours, which kind of ties into episode 1 where we did G for gossip. So rumours just come from gossip, don't they, really? And it will have a negative effect on whoever is being rumoured about or gossiped about.
One of these
yes.
things where it's like you don't know if it's true or not, do you?
Yeah, get your facts straight before you start talking about others. So what we mentioned in the previous episode. So S, we have suffering in silence, which I guess is not a trait of a workplace, but it's more of a cause. So if you have a negative culture and it's affecting an individual, they might sit there and suffer in silence because they might feel isolated or unsupported. And then that could lead them to quit eventually because they're just sat there suffering.
Also, if they're suffering in silence, then it's showing something about the culture of the company as well. Like, why can't they go to if it's not their line manager, why can't they go to their colleagues or like get advice from someone else at the company? If they're made to feel like they're isolated and suffering on their own, then there's that thing where people aren't connected as they should be, and that's going to ultimately as well affect performance of the team.
You all want to look out for each other, and that needs to be embraced and promoted in an environment, not having individuals feeling like they're alone. And I guess suffer in silence also ties into like having an environment of fear. If people are sat there and are scared to speak up, they're all essentially suffering in silence, regardless of how confident they are in their job. So T, then we have trust, and it kind of ties into micromanaging trust, because if you're being micromanaged, that's a sign that you're not being trusted, in my opinion. It's important to trust your colleagues because that actually makes them perform better.
And I mean that you hire people based on their ability to do the job. So if you can't trust them to do the job, then you've made a mistake hiring them. Ultimately, you have hired them because you believe that they can do that job and they can do it well. So you just got to trust them to do it. If they're not doing it to the level you're expecting, then it's something to bring up in like a one-to-one or a quarterly review or something like that. It's just let them get on with it, let them ask questions if they need help, trust them to do the job, and then like keep on top of it in quarterlies or like regular one-to-ones.
Yeah, I guess the only time where you would mistrust someone is if they're acting like in a negative way against the company. That would cause a mistrust. So if they're not showing up to work, or if they're not attending those meetings, or if their work is below par, it might cause a little bit of mistrust there. But to just mistrust them from the off, that's a wrong way to go about it. So for you then, we have U-turns. That kind of ties into, again, the last episode we had hypocrisy. So for U-turns, it's similar to hypocrisy, where you say one thing and then a week later or 2 months later, you're going back on what you've said. And that's just going to cause confusion within a team, within a company, and people aren't going to know where they stand.
And even with like project work or features like development or plans for new products or whatever, constantly U-turning is going to eventually cause staff to lose interest in like developing that idea, because they're going to be like, well, if it's just going to be binned in 4 weeks or whatever, then there's no point putting much effort into it.
Yeah, and it could affect the outcome of that product, because if you're agreeing something at the beginning and then halfway through you're changing it, and then they have to quickly rush and change it, the outcome of that product is going to be like lower quality than it would have been if they had all the information correct at the beginning.
I think as well, like, I think people would be more understanding if, as well, there's better communication. So like, it's inevitable that some things are going to go down in priority and some things are going to go up, and sometimes you might need to shift to a higher priority like feature. And I think it comes down to like management explaining why they're shifting priority. So it's not like a U-turn, it's more of we're just shifting to this project currently, and then we'll switch back to this one. It doesn't always have to be a U-turn.
So for V then we have, I'll say the two because they kind of relate. We have victimization and villainization. So this ties in with bullying. So if you're a bully, you could use villainization against the person you're bullying to turn the whole company against them. And then if somebody calls you out on your bullying, that person may then play the victim to get out of what they've done.
It's one of those things as well. Like if you're in a position where you're being villainized, you need to have that evidence kind of to back up your point of view.
Yeah, because they're going to try everything they can to isolate you, and make it worse for you. Yeah. So having evidence against that and proving them wrong is really important.
And it doesn't even need to be like evidence. For example, it just like if you're in a meeting, just take notes, record the meeting.
Yeah.
It's just standard practice in most places to record meetings or take notes. But without those, it can lead to like misunderstanding or he said, they said kind of situations. So just take notes. It doesn't have to be classed as evidence. I think that's probably a red flag as well in the first place. If you feel like every meeting you go to you have to take evidence, then it's saying something about the culture there as well.
Yeah, it's just about like having agreed processes. Like I think in most companies they have like an agenda and minutes following the meeting, and it just keeps everybody on the same page, and it will help prevent against you being villainized against whatever it is. And yeah, playing the victim is a hard one to get out of or to try and negate against. But it does happen when bullies are called out. They will perhaps try and turn it on themselves. They're the ones being bullied, not they're the ones being the bully. So it's just something to look out for. Okay, W, again, this isn't a toxic trait. This is a cause of having an unhealthy environment and its well-being. So well-being will be affected if your company is unhealthy. Like, it's gonna hit everybody eventually, regardless of where you are, or if that negative culture is affecting you or not. It will seep through, because that's just how it works. And it's important to look out for all your colleagues and your friends within a workplace if you see that they're being affected by it.
Yeah, if you see someone struggling, all you have to do is just say hi. All right, like, how you doing? Just start a conversation.
Cool. For X, we don't actually have one for X, but I've put in exonerate for X because it's got an X in it. And again, this isn't a toxic trait, but it may be something that a person, if they are affected by a negative culture or feel like they want to leave or have left because of an unhealthy environment where they've been villainised, they might feel the need to exonerate themselves. And, you know, they don't just leave that place and walk away from it. They want to show that actually they weren't the villain after all. So they might feel like they need to exonerate themselves.
Yeah, and as well, kind of if they've left because of something bad that's happened, it gives them a chance to get kind of closure as well. Like, if you've left a company on bad terms, and then you might feel the need to say, wait, hold on, this wasn't my fault. I need to prove that it wasn't my fault, because you don't want to leave your friends with a bad impression of you either. Like, the people you've worked with for maybe years.
Yeah.
You don't want them thinking,
yeah.
oh, all this bad stuff's happened because of you. So yeah.
Especially if after you leave the villainisation continues. It's no wonder they've left. Like, that person's left. They were causing havoc here. They were awful. Once they go, their name shouldn't be mentioned again, really, because there's no need for it. Okay, so for Y, we have "you're a problem," which is basically if you have a colleague that tells other colleagues that they're causing issues, or if you're a manager and someone comes to you and wants support, but you just go back with them with, like, "you're causing me problems here," that's not going to offer them any support, and they're going to feel, again, isolated in that environment. And again, I guess that kind of ties into villainisation as well. Saying somebody is a problem is villainising them.
Yeah, definitely.
For Z, we have zero work-life balance. So, like, I get it, overtime exists, and sometimes it's a needs must. But if your company is rewarding people that do overtime all the time, that is a red flag. Regardless of, you put an extra effort in, that's great. Like, it's nice to feel like valued in that way. However, what that company should be asking themselves is, why do we need to do so much, like, overtime? Why is this individual working so hard that actually their work-life balance doesn't exist?
Yeah, and also it plays into, like, your well-being type thing. So having to work until like 10 p.m. or like hours after your finish time, it's going to affect your well-being over time. And I think as well, it's important for the employee to acknowledge that and say, no, this is going to affect me. I can't work all the time.
I think if I was a boss in a company and I had an individual who was constantly working, I think what I would do is I'd pick it up with them and say, what's going on? Why are you constantly working? This is not right. A good company is one that values work-life and makes sure that their employees have the balance there. And if they're not balancing it, then they work towards getting their balance right for their employees. So I read something which stays in my mind. Like, it didn't change my work ethic. I always put 110% in, but it just made me consciously aware of my work-life balance. And it was, if something happens to you, if you don't get up tomorrow morning, your work will replace you. And that's, like, ruthless, but it's true, because the show must go on because it's a company, right? But to your family and to your friends, you're irreplaceable. And that just, like, that stays with me whenever I'm trying to weigh up if I've got the balance right. Then I think of that, and I think, yeah, I need to make sure that it is balanced and I'm not working too hard.
I hadn't actually thought about it that way, so it's pretty dark, but it's
Yeah,
true.
it is dark, but it just makes me. It just made me aware, like more aware of making sure that I got that balance right. So cool. We have now done full A to Z over 2 episodes. And I guess what would be really interesting if anybody actually is watching this is if you've got a story to tell, please tell us. Like, we've got the comments open on YouTube. We've obviously got our social accounts as well. So just let us know if you've got a story to tell. We're listening. We want to know. And also, if you're a leader, and you notice that you've got toxicity in your workplace, what first steps would you take to kind of abolish it? Because it would be really difficult for a leader to try and get on top of it.
Yeah, I guess for a leader, like for an employee, it's just them they're managing or taking care of. But for like a leader, you've got to care for your whole team, and that could be it could be 3 people, it could be 2 people, it could be 20 people. There's a lot more pressure on managers, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if you're watching this and you've been affected by workplace toxicity, let us know. We wanna hear. But please don't mention company names or individuals because we don't want to get in trouble with anybody. Cool. And we will see you for the next episode. Thanks, Phil. Bye.